more than just a face. We're here tonight to explore the art of storytelling, the art of photography, and philanthropy. We are here to look at what's behind the face. The photographs each tell a story. It's not about a face. There's much more that goes on. We're here to go under the surface. We're here to look at the rich human experiences around the world and that tapestry, how it's interwoven together. We all know that you're more than just a face. Pick an icon from the box, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's an association, something that triggers you about where you were at that part of the world when you captured that image, the storytelling.
So when I see that boy, what I think about is wonderment. And this symbol, the crystal egg, means to me, or represents to me, that sort of wonderment at the world. He's a young child in southwestern China, in Chinese Turkestan, in the city of Kashgar, which was on the original Silk Road that went from China to Europe, to travel, taking all the silks and other goods from China. And this boy is just an embodiment to me of the wonder of a child, unfettered by the world's problems and just looking hopeful and in wonderment at what's there to come.
That gritty image from Cuba where there's the chain link fence, what's the story behind the face of the man who, I recall it's Cuba, and he invited you in for coffee? And what comes to mind when you were remembering that experience? What do you think of? What's an icon that when you go treasure hunting triggers a memory or a thought of being there at that time, place?
So this gentleman who spoke only Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, I was taking his picture in front of his house. It's interesting because the Cubans seem very, very open to having their picture taken. In fact, if anything, they actually like it and encourage it. So that's what I was doing. I was taking his picture, and then he started speaking to me in Spanish, and the only word I recognized was café. And so I realized he was inviting me in for coffee, and so I picked the keys because he was opening his house to me as a friendly gesture. And I assumed he was just talking about pouring me a cup of coffee, but he didn't. He ground the beans. He went through the entire process and brought out his cups, and we had coffee together. And of course, it all started with his very, very interesting face. That's what got my attention.
How did you communicate without having language once? Did you just watch him pressing the coffee and not?
Yeah, it was non-verbal communication between the two of us.
The man with the weathered face with the cigarette hanging out?
Cigar, this is Cuba.
Oh, it's a cigar.
Cigar, this is Cuba.
This is
well, wait a minute now.
No.
Maybe it is a cigarette.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm intrigued by he's got a big story behind that face somehow, but what image pops to mind, or when you look through the icons, when you're there thinking about him, reliving that experience, the story behind the face, what do you think of? Any association?
Well, I came up with this wheel, ship wheel, and this man was in a tobacco warehouse where they dry the leaves of the tobacco for cigars after they're harvested. And several things struck me. One was, he really didn't look that Cuban. He looked like somebody from the Midwest. But then as I really studied him, what came to mind was he looked like an old weathered ship captain. And that's why I picked the wheel.
It's quite a face and quite a photo.
Yes, he looks like he has quite a history.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. There's a lot in the lines.
Yes, a lot of life in that face.
Exactly. Let's move on to this beautiful image. So light in comparison to the other two. The skipping girl. She's skipping down. We're still in Cuba. Different story. Pick an object for the girl that's skipping.
It's kind of an interesting story because a lot of times in photography you have to be lucky and you have to be quick. So I was shooting a picture of a man making bird cages, building bird cages. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the girl skipping down the hill right where I was, and had to turn and instantly snap that picture. And I think it's my favorite picture of that whole particular expedition, because she just, I mean, you notice she's not smiling. She's just doing her thing. And I picked a butterfly because she's floating. She's floating in the air like a butterfly.
That's a beautiful story. And the contrast after the other two it adds depth, and it's a beautiful photo.
She represents more of the future, whereas that man kind of represents more of the past.
The title on this photo, "That Is My Leg." It took me a while looking at the photo to see what that, where were you? We're still in Cuba, right?
We're still in Cuba.
Okay, tell me the story and give me
Well, here's my symbol for that.
why
This
did she-
was in a ballet school.
Okay.
And so she's a student in the best ballet school in Havana. And I have to point it out to people that's her arm crossing the picture, but behind her arm is her leg, straight up. And obviously there's no strain appearing in her face. It's just the most natural thing to be standing with your leg straight up next to your head. And so the stars, because this is clearly going to be a future ballet star.
She clearly is.
Yeah.
It's confusing when you first look at it, and beautiful. And I like your point about the composure on her face,
Yes.
making it look so effortless when it's so difficult, believe.
Well, difficult for any of the rest of us mortals anyway.
Mere mortals. It's a lovely story behind that face. One of my favorite photos for More Than Just a Face, the doll hospital. Jerry, where are we on the object when you think of the doll hospital? Pick an icon and tell me where we are in the world, and
Okay.
first go treasure hunting.
Well, I picked the skull and crossbones, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I had just moved to Rome and was walking down the street and had my camera with me, and I saw this site in a window in a shop of these dolls. And at the time, I don't even know that I knew the story, but later found out this was a doll hospital. And I still don't, there's still a mystery with this, which I have not found out yet, because you said my Italian's fluent. Well, it's not quite fluent enough to be able to ask this man who owns that doll hospital the question. After I had walked by there the first time and seen it as you see it in this photograph, I then actually moved very close to there, so I saw it almost every day, and it never looked like that again. It just looked like a jumbled mess of old dolls. And so clearly somebody set that up, and I have not been able to determine how or why it was set up. But I would like to know. I will find out the answer to that. Maybe this summer in Rome.
Timing is everything.
You know,
and
but the reason I picked the skull and crossbones is a lot of people who see this are pretty spooked by it. Many people are spooked at it. I know you're not, but most of the people who looked at it say, wow, that's pretty spooky. I don't know if I'd want to have that in my bedroom.
in this photograph, the profile is beautiful, composed, and inside the palio we have others where they're competitive, and his composure. What did you pick for that photograph? He stood out.
Well, I picked this column because his appearance is a very Renaissance, medieval look. And they do that intentionally in the city of Siena, which is divided up into 17 city-states that are very competitive with each other. And you're born, baptized, schooled, go to church in your particular city-state. It might be Tower or the Snail, or they're all different names. And then they have the 2 horse races a year called the Palio. But what came to my mind in his look was old times. And that's intentional. They dress up this way for the race twice a year, July and August.
On the next photo of the men that are marching,
Mm-hmm.
does that show, are they having on their, are they showing what city-state they're
Yes.
from?
That's their uniform and colors of their particular city-state.
What object would you pick for that photograph? It's a very different sensation. They're very serious and
I picked the shield because it reminds me of both the era and time that they're representing, the kind of the Renaissance period, and the shield with the symbols could be the symbol for one of the contradas, one of the city-states.
still in Siena at the Palio in this photograph. What do you think of I'm looking at this woman. Her expression is very different than the men down in the arena. What do you pick for her, and why, or what is your association to the image of?
Well, I picked this Egyptian kind of stoic-looking statue because with the Palio, the horse race itself takes 2 minutes, but there's 5 days of marches and singing and tossing of a flag up into the air and catching it, and actually very precisely. People are trained for years to do that. And it goes on and on and on all day long for about 5 days. So then I looked at this woman, I caught a vision of her as all this was going on, the marching and music playing, and my impression was she was looking at it, oh, again, I've seen it now for 80 years, 150 times. Here we go again. Just kind of stoic, and I don't know, just people seeing it for the first time are like the Chinese boy in the first photograph, in awe and wonderment. She's the opposite.
She's seen it all.
She's seen it all.
In this photo, now we're in Rome, and the statue floating on the couch. Can you pick one for that and tell me a little bit about?
Well, there's a museum. It's not one of the well-known museums in Rome. It's in the Villa Borghese. And in this portion of the museum, which is upstairs, is actually an artist's quarters where an artist resided. And this is in his bedroom. And when I went in there and saw the statue on the couch, it seemed to be floating there. And also not what you would expect. And sort of like with a lily pad, that's a flower, but it's on water. So it's like a little bit out of context, and that's why I picked the lily pad to go with that. But I really loved that photo, and I just thought it was a very unique thing to have that big statue on it, and the light color in the somewhat dark room. Pretty striking.
Moving to another part of the world, to Rio, to Carnival. We have another floating head, much different than in Rome, but the mask. You have so many beautiful images from Rio, but I know it's one photo of many. Can you pick an icon for the
Sure.
mask from Rio?
Well, I picked the mirror because it seems to me the masks and the costumes are not real life, they're a reflection of real life. And so that's why I picked the mirror, and it's pretty amazing when you watch the parade, the carnival parade, the beauty of the costumes, and again, it's sort of like the contradas because it's all different dance groups that are coming in with their uniform costumes. And you see one and you think, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life. Nothing could ever top this. And then there's another one that's even better. Obviously they spend a lot of time creating these costumes, different every year, every time they do the Carnival. And so that's my feeling. They are reflecting life. and reflecting the better parts of life, happiness. Because when you look at their faces, and they're all ages, they're young people all the way up to pretty elderly people in the parade, all with huge smiles on their faces.
This photo of, I call Little Red Riding Hood, I have to hear your title on her. With that scream. There's an exuberance or life in Rome.
Yes.
Can you pick an object for Little Red Riding Hood?
Well, I picked the red rose. Obviously, the red ties in with her. And I was sitting actually with my daughter in the same Villa Borghese, the park. And the young girl came skipping by. It was near Christmas time, so I think she was dressed in that kind of seasonal outfit. But again, just happiness and freedom and open to the world. The feeling I got from seeing her. And then, but I then called it Little Red Riding Hood because of the outfit she was wearing.
Well, great capturing of the moment. The photo of the little boy blowing, he's not blowing bubbles.
He's not blowing the bubbles. The man whose arm you see is actually not
His-
blowing the bubbles, but using a wand.
His face, can you tell me, what did you title that? Because I'm looking at this photo and he has an expression that, what do you make of his expression?
Well, my original thought was wonderment, and so I picked the goldfish with the big bug eyes because it has to do with his eyes being
Right.
bug-eyed looking at the bubbles. But also there's a kind of a funny expression, and my thought about that is he's thinking, why is this man doing the bubbles? I should be doing the bubbles. I'm the child. What is this grown man doing? Anyway, I don't know if that's what was in his mind, but could be.
I like that. And on a more serious note, let's go back to Easter Island. I know it's not a face in a traditional way like the boy, but don't step on the statues and that image of the head that's laying down. Tell me a little bit about what's going on underneath the surface in Easter Island in that photograph.
Well, there's really a series of three that I think you're referencing. One is don't step on the statues because you're actually in the area where the quarry, where the natives created the Moai statues. And so then the second picture shows how they carved the statue from the mountain. And the third one is the head of a Moai statue, but you don't see the body. So the body, 2/3 of it is underground. These are statues that were never relocated to the platforms where they honored the particular tribes that they came from. And that one, if you look at the expression, I call Moai statue with an attitude. And I don't think I need to explain that. If you just look at it, you can see. And I had various thoughts when I saw it. I was like, what are you doing here? This is my place. It's like, why are you trespassing here? I've been here for 1,000 years. What are you doing here?
There's way more than just a face behind that one. It actually goes underground.
2/3 of it
into
is
the earth.
underground, yes.
And for a final overall picking an icon, if you were to pick anything for your overall vision of, as you go about the world and you're getting all of these human life experiences and putting it all together, what's your overall process? Or can you pick one icon, an overview of the whole storytelling?
Well, I picked the lighthouse for that because, number one, light is really the key to a good photograph. And it's not always something you can control. And I try to do almost exclusively natural light. But you can't control what time of day you're shooting. So early morning shots, late afternoon shots tend to be the best light. But it's also a function of where you are. There's just certain parts of the world, whether it's the Ganges at dawn or Tuscany, that just in southern France have incredible light most of the time. In addition to that, kind of the second half for me is trying to use the light to capture and see things in a way that people don't usually see them. And the nicest comments I've had made, for example, when I lived in Rome for 2 years and had a photography show there, people, locals who grew up there saying to me, I've been by that statue or that plaza my entire life and I never saw it the way you did. So that's where the light and the viewing is what I try to bring to it, something unique in capturing a vision.
Clean outside perspective of, right, it's something they see every day, but then you coming in from the outside gives them an enhancement or an insight.
Well, the other thing I try to do in my photography is I try to focus. I think when you look at some photography, what becomes a problem with it is pictures can get cluttered. And I try to focus in on the main theme and the main subject and not have it cluttered.
Overall, thank you for that one. And
we are very happy to be supporting the Lorraine Jackson Foundation. This foundation provides scholarships to children who have lost a parent to breast cancer. We hope that you will consider including this wonderful cause on your list when you're in mind of making a contribution.
we all know you're more than just a face.